Houston, we have a problem. And what's the problem? The problem is that there are people who say that they are God's chosen people and are not. And then those who say they are Africans and are not. Why? These are the things we're going to discuss in this video.
So the people who call themselves Jews, they claim to be the descendants of the tribe of Judah. As this comment points out, the Ashkenazi Jews are white, right? Those Ashkenazi Jews are descendants from a group of converts that migrated from the Russian area into the region around 700 to 800 AD, and they converted to the Hebrew culture. They were called the Khazars. When scripture says that they will call themselves Jews, but they're not, or the synagogue of Satan, Hitler basically knew that these weren't the real Jews, so rounding them up and slaughtering them as the Jewish people, and then while the real Jews were being brought over in the American slave trade.
All of this confusion of who is part and parcel to the lack of education that we're all receiving in the indoctrination system called schools and universities. For those of us who know true history, we know that everything we have been taught in America is a complete lie. And unfortunately, this lie has stretched throughout the globe. And so people like me are here to set straight truth about history. These are the very people, the people that lady was talking about, who call themselves they're the ones that wrote the curriculum. They wrote African Americans' history. They're the ones that changed my people's identity over and over again. So all of the indoctrination that we received in schools comes from these people who stole my people's identity. Hello? How can people who stole our identity give us our history? How can we even assume that history is true when they've stolen our identity? So if they stole our identity, then they had to make it seem as though we were other people who were not. Does that not make sense? These are the very people who had this out of Africa theory, saying that modern day Africa is actually the motherland where everyone was shipped from. But that's not true. It's Christopher Columbus who gathered all the indigenous people and shipped them throughout the world. And this out of Africa theory is so ridiculous. Why? They came up with it because, now first keep in mind that a theory is not a fact. A theory is just an assumption. It's a guesstimation. It's someone's ideas. So it's not fact, and it's not backed by anything factual, nor science or biological. He basically said, Charles Darwin that is, that the people in Africa resembled monkeys, apes, chimpanzees, and gorillas. So surely they evolved from those creatures. This is how evolution and the out of Africa theories were born. This is nothing more than just an insult. And this is what they call history. And you would rather listen to that nonsense as proof of true history. Okay. That is the epitome of falling for the okie doke. The confusion starts with Christopher Columbus, who sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Well, what was he in search of? He was in search of the Garden of Eden. I have a video where I spoke about that in depth. And he was actually called a Renaissance explorer by Europe. The British, those who sent him to America. He is heralded as a hero because he's the founder of the first permanent European settlement in the world. Now, see, there are a lot of Africans that want to say, oh, you people are over there building up their country and this and that and that and this, yada, yada, yada. But that's not true. You clearly see here it says settlement for the Europeans, right? So they came to America and settled. They were not in America before my people were. They met my people in America. It further states that his arrival associated the beginning of a period of cultural exchange between my people who were already in America and their people who came to America. Now take note of this. It was also the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. The devastating consequences of his voyages ended up in slavery and death of the indigenous people. Not only was he a slave trafficker, he was also a sex trafficker with children as young as 9 years old, that he trafficked from the Americas to the Mediterranean and into Africa. And that's also another problem. People actually think that we were shipped from Africa and dumped in America, but it's just not true. It's the complete opposite way. History is a complete lie. And those of us who are telling the truth, true history, we're being attacked and abused by those who don't know what's going on, don't have a clue. And they're unfortunately still indoctrinated by the false miseducation system. I've done some deep research already proving that the slave trade was told in reverse. And you can take a look at that on my channel, Brutally Honest History Lover on YouTube. And these are the videos. Slave trade happened in reverse, part 1, 2, and 3. Personally, it's annoying for Africans to continually push the colonizers' false version of history on us. And essentially, none of you have proof. I'm still waiting for undeniable proof, evidence, solid proof and evidence that my people came from Africa, just like the solid proof and evidence we have for people having been kidnapped from the Americas and forced into Africa and the rest of the world, essentially. And the most undeniable part of this, the E1B1A DNA haplogroup belongs to the Hebrews. We are the ones that Christopher Columbus was in search of when he came to America, besides the Garden of Eden, because he knew that the Hebrews were wherever the Garden of Eden was at, which is why he came to America, which is why all of the Europeans decided to get on ships and come to America and stay in America. If Africa were truly the motherland, don't you think that they would have gone over there in droves like they did in the Americas and settled there? But they settled in America, not modern day Africa. And the DNA from the top of the Americas all the way down to the bottom is E1B1A type, which is A00 and also L. That's our DNA in America. And our DNA is scattered throughout Africa. It's mixed in with the E1B1B, which is the real African DNA haplogroup. And as you can see here, African DNA is E1B1B, and it is not a major haplogroup in the Americas. So if we were actually brought from Africa and we are Africans, wouldn't E1B1B DNA haplogroup be a major DNA group in America? Hello? Wake up. It's not rocket science. And it's a shame that those of you who claim to be a Bible believer don't even have a clue that the Bible clearly states that there are many different nations of people. And all of those nations started out as 9 ether beings or heavily melanated people like me prior to their seed being whitened out. We have the African lineages. Now, the people in Africa, the actual real true Africans, they come from Ham, the Hamitic line. And they actually consider those people to be white. And they're in the upper part of Africa, the Horn of Africa. However, there are some, scattered throughout Africa with the E1B1B DNA haplogroup type as well. But those are no doubt Africans. And then you have the Shemitic line. You have Ham and you have Shem. The Shemitic line is the Hebrews. And that's the people that were in America that they captured and they kidnapped and sent throughout the earth. All of the nations, including the Africans, which not all so-called black people are Africans, said, let's plot against these people. We will conspire to cut their people off as a nation so we can destroy these people. This is why my people in America have been renamed, reclassified so many times so that we could no longer be in remembrance. We could no longer be in existence. And those of us that they shipped to modern day Africa and throughout the world, they called them Africans. And when they brought some of them back to the Americas, they renamed them Africans. But it's not the Africans that they did this to. It's the Hebrews that they did this to. And voila, this brings us back full circle to the prisoner of war titles that they gave all of us. The coloreds, the African, the Negro, the Black, African American, Hispanic. This is to throw us off so that we wouldn't know who we are as a people. This is how they cut us off as a nation. So all of us that are named all these different names, colored and Hispanic and Negro and African American and African, we're all actually essentially the same people, minus a few of them that I explained. Those above the Horn of Africa, yada, yada. Go back and look at the explanation. Which again, we go back to the Table of Nations, which tells us that there are many different lineages of people. All of these started out as so-called black people before the whitening. Okay? And so not every so-called black person is an African. We are not all the exact same people. We have different DNA. We had different cultures. We had different tribes. And we had different languages. They dumped you guys throughout Africa. You have the same DNA as us in America, in Sierra Leone, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau, in Liberia. There are also Hebrews in many of these places here. And quite frankly, 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel are in America. And if you're trying to convince me that I come from modern day Africa, you need to bring it like I just brought it, proving that I'm not from Africa. If not, please, be me be. Don't tell me that I'm from some place I know I'm not from. If you enjoyed this content and you want to learn more about true history, then you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Brutally Honest History Lover on YouTube and History Lover on TikTok.